All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580. 540-0580. Show where I answer your legal questions. Oh, well, I guess it's a holiday weekend, so if you're not out driving around and you're sitting at home, you're probably watching your colored television set instead of listening to me. But if you are listening in your garage, puttering around, cooking some hot dogs, or in the car and you want to call in with your legal question, it's 540-0580. Some interesting facts I found out recently. I was reading a magazine called The Economist, and it turns out that there are only 4,000 people a year who are able to stay in the United States as illegals because of anchor babies. So when you hear about these anchor babies causing people to be able to stay here illegally, it's only 4,000 times a year. And I know somebody's going to say 4,000 times is too many. But obviously anchor babies don't explain our huge illegal immigration problem, if that's the case. And that's a real statistic from a credible source. 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. I'll answer them here on the air. What else did I want to talk to you guys about? I don't think the courts, the Supreme Court's out of session for the summer, so they haven't really done anything, so there's not much I can tell you about them. Pennsylvania Supreme Court hasn't issued anything monumental lately, so it seems like everything's status quo in the world of law. There has been a new DUI decision that came out involving the licenses a little while back, saying that if you had more than one DUI charged at the same time, and you remember I did post that case before where people were able to get their convictions regraded and get their gun rights back. Well, they've now said that PennDOT can only poach your driver's license as if it was a first DUI for each offense. They are under the same restrictions, and that case came out of the Commonwealth Court very recently. So there is some hope for people with driver's license problems, although for most people it's not going to help you because you had to raise the issue in the first instance, which means if you didn't raise the issue when you first were suspended, you probably don't have retroactive relief. Denny, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Denny?
All right, here we go. This is kind of hard to explain. There's an abandoned house right beside me, okay?
Okay.
And the township has not been taking care of it at all. Well, me and my wife noticed lately that this house is leaning, and it's fallen off its foundation. And now all of a sudden, this house on the top of the roof is leaning against my house. And my bedroom walls are starting to crack, my roof's leaking, and I don't know what I should do first.
Well, the first thing you should do is you talk to the township about it.
I did. They're basically, we'll look into it, we'll do what we need to do. And they don't seem like they really want to do anything about it.
Right.
The house is a HUD house.
Okay.
And I think that's scaring people.
Okay. Is there anybody living in it?
No, nobody's lived there for 2 years.
It's truly abandoned.
Yeah.
Well, one of two things needs to be done. The township can condemn it, and they probably need to do that and then take safety precautions. What they're probably scratching their heads on is who's going to pay for it later.
Right.
But their condemnation bill can be attached to the land, so I guess someday they might own the lot if they're really lucky.
What should I do with the damages on my house?
Is there a record owner of any sort?
Yes.
And who? I mean, don't give me a name, but is that a real person somewhere?
Yeah, there's a name of a realtor through HUD.
Okay.
That's the name that the township got of who's in charge of this place.
Gotcha. Probably what I would do, if you came to see me, the first thing I would do is call down to a title searcher and just have them get me the deed for the house. Because over the deed holder of the house is really going to be the person you could go after. And then I would immediately start some... What's that?
It belongs to the bank, I heard. It was foreclosed.
Well, then we'll go after the bank. If it belongs to the bank, it belongs to the bank. We can go after them.
All right, so instead of calling all these people, and I should get a hold of a lawyer and get this rolling, huh?
I would do both. Because you don't want to take any chances. If the township sits on their hands and does nothing, all right, and the house falls over on you,
yeah,
they're not going to do anything about it after the fact, and they're a governmental agency, so their liability is going to be so limited as to almost be none.
Should I call my homeowners?
I'd make them aware of it. They may want to come out and help you out with it to avoid a claim themselves, and that's what's nice about insurance companies is, they're about risk mitigation, and the agent may say, hey, Denny, tell you what I'll do. I'll send somebody out there and I'll have them help you with this so that we don't end up with a big fat claim.
Yeah, well, the other part of the small part of the story is that my house is a double house.
Uh-huh.
I have a renter beside me who just moved out. There's a landlord involved with this, too.
Okay.
So he needs to get in this with me, right?
He probably should. I'd go all angles. I get the township working on it. I would call my insurance guy. And why don't you talk to the insurance guy first and see if they would actually handle the lawyer end for you?
Oh, okay. That's cool.
All right, Denny?
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Good luck, brother.
Okay, bye.
540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. Ronald, what's going on down there in Dover?
Hey, what's going on, Carl? Hey, I just quick question. I rode street bikes myself, and also knew of I had a family member who was diabetic, and I'm just quoting this about the story. You know about the guy that crossed lanes.
Exactly.
Can he be actually brought up on a murder charge, or would it be like a manslaughter? What would that be?
Well, okay. There's a couple kinds of murder that could apply, arguably. First one's involuntary manslaughter, which is just negligence. You know,
right.
you knew you weren't more than ordinary negligence, but negligence. You know, you knew you weren't feeling well. You knew you were getting kind of out of it, and you just didn't stop driving. Drink some orange juice, eat a candy bar, whatever it is you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing just sucks the whole way around, but nobody wins on that one.
Yeah, now, here's the next one, though. I mean, what if you have seizure? We'll just change the facts a little bit. Say you have a seizure disorder, and you frequently fall into a seizure.
Right.
Well, we'd all agree that you shouldn't be driving around, and that, in fact, you probably might be engaging in such a kind of reckless or knowing conduct that you actually might be guilty of murder 3.
Right. Yeah, because if you've fallen into shock before or have a habit of going low or high with your sugars, yeah, I can see where you're going there. Yeah.
And so, you know, I want to know where we were on the scale of things. Now, here's the other problem, though, and I know this because I had a guy. I had a guy driving down 81 who was pulled over for a DUI, was very combative with the police officers, and he didn't have any alcohol in him. And, of course, at the emergency room, the doc's like, guys, we need to treat him. He's a diabetic problem here.
Yeah, right.
He was out of his gourd. And that's the problem for some of the folks. They slip, that line imperceptibly. 1 minute they think they're fine, and they're the last ones to know they've slipped into a stupor.
Well, we were doing a roofing job, and my brother-in-law, he just got up and started laughing. He walked off a second-story roof. Never stopped laughing the whole way till he hit, and he didn't break a bone. But yeah, it's just crazy. You know, when the sugar goes.
So what you're thinking there is should he have known? Could he have known? And I guess it's going to depend on the individual circumstance. What I'd be most curious to see is, had other people observed him in these conditions? I
guess it's all going to come on the history of him, of his recklessness, or if he's actually been, this is the first time it's ever happened to him. I guess that's what's going to really clam it down.
Yeah, that'll change it a lot.
All right, buddy. Hey, did you get any more stickers made up for your man?
Not yet.
Got Bob all lit up, brother. You and that guy. I don't know who your friend there with the flaming fish. That was a good one, though, Carl. Hey, I love your show, man. Keep up.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right, later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's see here. 540-0580. I want to get back from break. I'm going to talk with Jim. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions on WHP 580.
Let's return to Weekend Appointment with Carl Rominger on WHP 580.
As we continue with our marijuana-themed bumper music. What are these guys in the booth doing? I don't know. 540-0580, 540-0580. Oh, boy. I was just telling some lawyers yesterday in court. They said I'm on full bad news all the time. I was explaining to them that our state's going bankrupt and that their salaries aren't going to go unpaid at some point because the entire government's going to collapse under the weight of all its debt. I don't think they wanted to hear that, but I don't think it's half untrue. Jim, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing there, Carl?
Good.
I listen to your show all the time. My son is in a legal predicament. He gave a guy $30,000 to perform a service. The guy left town. His lawyer filed a complaint, and he typically goes in and I say, ask this, ask that, and he can't even remember what he asked the attorney.
Right.
So what happened is that he filed a complaint. Now, the answer to that complaint is due September the 20th in Dauphin County. The judge issued a rule to show cause and gave them to October the 1st under the rule to show cause, because we're alleging, fraud and that sort of thing,
right,
and how he got the money and skipped town. But in any case, will they still have to answer that complaint that was filed first, or since the rule to show cause has been issued?
Well, I don't know what, and let me stop you for a second. A rule to show cause is just a term of art where the court basically says, "Hey, tell us your side of the story, and if you don't, we won't consider it, and we'll just go with what the other side has to say."
Okay.
So I'm assuming a complaint was filed, and then the rule must have been issued on a separate motion?
No, in the complaint, his lawyer submitted a rule to show cause.
Did he ask for like an injunction of some sort?
Yeah, actually, he put together he did ask for an injunction because the person has assets, and he's trying to go...
That's... What that rule to show cause then is just going to be on the issue of distraining or otherwise attaching those assets or preventing their dissipation.
Okay.
They will still have to answer the original complaint or eventually be defaulted on it.
Okay. All right. And I don't know why he couldn't answer it. I asked him to write it down. He said, I just, got nervous. I'm saying, write it. I said, write it down. Just read it to the attorney. The attorney's real friendly.
Right.
But, people just don't want to.
My favorite.
Asking stupid questions. I'm saying there's nothing wrong with a stupid question if you're being paid for the answer.
What do they say on the helpful hardware guy show earlier in the morning? Stupid questions are welcome because they're easy to answer.
Yeah, well, he won't do it.
The thing though is, and I say I just laugh about this, but I get these phone calls. Mm-hmm. My husband was just in your office, talked with you for half an hour. Listen, he doesn't have any idea what. Can you just tell me what it is? Then the wife will have like three simple questions that. The other half of the relationship, and it goes back and forth. But, a lot of times it's quite, you have to know what question to ask, and you have to know why, and really that's what you're dependent on the lawyer for. But the short answer is yes, they're going to have to answer that complaint.
Well, see, I told him, I said, look, just write down these questions I used to do claims work.
Okay.
An insurance background, so I was always around this litigation stuff for decades on the pre-litigation side. And I said, write it down, just ask him, do they have to answer it? And he goes over there and doesn't read it. He says, I didn't feel comfortable reading it. And I said, you got to the guy's real easy to get along with and you like. And I said, you got to get, he's saying to you, look, you have any questions? And you say no.
Right.
And you come back to me with 10,000 questions. So I would tell people, if you got an attorney and he's open like that and he wants to listen and he's going to give you the answers, then say to him, look, I have these questions and get them answered.
Right.
Okay, brother. God bless you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
All the time.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Bye. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. As you know, we do the bonus show, the bonus podcast hour. Well, we're not going to do that today. We're going to make Matt's life even easier. We're just going to rebroadcast this in its place tomorrow on the 1460 The Ticket because it's a holiday weekend and I want to do some stuff. My mom's in town. Take the family. We're going to go down to Lancaster and drive around, do all that good, exciting stuff. Probably hit some outlets. I don't know. Dinner. If anybody's got a good suggestion for a dinner place in Lancaster, feel free to phone or email that in while we're at it, too.
You look terribly excited about the outlet shopping.
Did it show through the glass? And there's nothing wrong with the outlet shopping. Except that you keep thinking, I could be at the casino right now, or I could be fishing, or I could be hanging out, whatever. Anyhow, we're not going to do the bonus podcast hour. So basically we're saving, I don't know what we're saving memory space on a computer somewhere. It can be used for something far more valuable. However, that means you've got to call in during this hour if you've got your legal question. And of course, if you got the teaser email, I am going to be giving away a gift certificate in the second half hour for Applebee's. I've got a $20 gift certificate I want to give away. So what I'm going to do is tell you that I need you to post something on my Facebook page if you want to qualify for that. So that's the rule. So go ahead. If anybody listening out there can get to a computer and post it, I'll give away a gift certificate. Then next week we're going to do some more cool stuff because I got a few more to give away. In the meantime, I make sure want you to go to weekendappointment.com and check out our free will program. Lots and lots of people have taken advantage of it. If you haven't, you got nothing to lose. You fill out a questionnaire, you send it in. In fact, a friend of mine called me the other day, and she said, "How much for a will, Carl?" And I was like, "Well, I should charge you because you haven't gone to the website." But I said, just follow this link. I'll email it to you. And she sent it in, and she was pleasantly surprised that it's a real will written by a real lawyer, me, for free. And if you already have a will, but you want to just check it out, and you haven't checked your will out in 5 or more years, we probably should do that. And we should probably update any life care plan you have or any living will so we can take care of that. 540-0580, call in with your questions. Bob, you're on with Carl.
Hi, Carl. I have two questions, actually.
Okay.
First is, recently divorced, and I'm paying child support for 2 children, which I have shared custody of. And the child support is roughly $400 a month. And after 11 years, I had become laid off. So money is not flowing. And so originally my ex had said, hey, the son needs these clothes or shoes or whatever, and I was going out and buying them. And then as I started to think about it, I'm like, well, aren't you kind of double dipping here? I'm paying you $400 a month, and you're coming and asking me for half of all the other expenses. And so my question is, do I say, well, no, I'm not paying for half of these things anymore. You're getting child support.
Right.
I had sent an email to her saying, hey, look, either cut off the child support, and I'll be glad to pay for half of the kids' clothes, medical. And I do pay for half the medical anyway, but all of that stuff. But it seems to me kind of double dipping, saying I'm paying half, plus I'm paying $400 a month when I'm now unemployed.
The child support law seems to presume, and this is the way it's been explained to me from reading the comments and the case law and whatnot, it seems to presume that the person who has majority custody is going to bear a majority of the expenses.
Which is, it's split 50-50.
And so the custody split 50-50?
Yes, have them half the nights and half the days.
So you're basically paying for half of their meals and half of this, half of that. And so if it's split 50-50, then we're going to presume that each of you is probably contributing equally to the children. The only purpose of the child support award is to sort of equalize the household's ability to finance that 50-50 split. Okay. But yeah, my position would be I'm not gonna give you money towards certain things or always help out as long as the child support's in place, because that's what that money should be being used for.
Well, and that's exactly what was my point. I said, I'm sure you're not spending $400 a month to buy the kids clothes, and I'm not. I want to contribute to my kids, obviously, but I'm sitting here looking at it as you're double dipping.
Yeah, and I would tell you that. However, the law does presume that you're going to still have some portion of the child care expense, even if you're paying support. So, I wouldn't tell you could go to zero and just say I'm not paying for anything, because that might affect your custody position in custody court later on.
So then how would you suggest that I handle that?
Well, here's what I would do. I would say I'm counting $200 of every month's support as towards my 50% share, whatever we're splitting.
Okay. And then would you suggest that I document on what I spend on the kids' clothes and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It didn't used to make as much of a difference, but in April when they amended the child support guidelines, it seems to suggest that if one of the parties is providing more than we would usually expect or more than we usually see, that party would be entitled to a downward departure in the amount of support. So that might be the other thing is I don't know when your support order was set and whether it was contested or by agreement or you just ran the raw guidelines.
Well, it was it was set and then reassessed, and it went up by like $30.
Right. Because you might be able to make a claim for an offset based on the fact that you are paying. If you were actually paying for 50% of everything, you could argue to the court that you're entitled to a downward departure on that basis.
And would that just be done by the hearing officer?
Well, here's the thing. Best I can tell, we don't know yet because when they updated this in the spring, and somebody out there who's listening can correct me, but what I've seen is nobody really seems to have a great answer yet because the rule doesn't give a magic formula. It just says you can give a departure for it. So we're making the argument usually more to the court than we are to the hearing officers just because it's a departure that's not clear.
Right.
And so some hearing officers feel really comfortable making those kinds of adjustments, but most will leave those, what I call the fuzzy ones, up to the court.
Okay. And my second question is, if my unemployment runs out or close to being running out, and I cannot get a job that pays
right.
nearly what I had been making before, will they impute my previous income? And they have not done it so far because the hearing officer had said, hey, he's been unemployed for almost a year. Do you know how many people I've seen unemployed for almost a year? That's at 10%. And in my industry, it's in construction, it's way down.
Right.
And so my question is, okay, if I can only make get a job when that's going to run out to support my family and myself for a lot less, are they going to say, are they going to stick me and say, oh, no, well, you have to pay for what, you were making before?
The short answer is if you lose your unemployment, you should immediately file for a reset because obviously your income's going to fall at that exact moment. If you find a job, great. If you don't, you just document what you're looking for and whether or not they will impute you a wage. I had this before where they kept saying my guy should be able to make a certain amount of money. And I actually had to prove to the judge that there were no jobs available. And he worked in an industry where to get a similar salary of $90,000 or $100,000, you'd have to find that exact position that he did, which were very rare. And I actually ended up subpoenaing in a couple other of the businesses in that field records to basically say, here's what we pay our guy. We already have a guy, and to show the judge that there just was nowhere else for him to go. He could go other places and make 2/3 of what he made, but there was nowhere to go and make what he was making.
Right.
But the court really didn't like that idea, and I don't know how courts are dealing with it at this exact moment. What I mean by that is 5 years ago when the economy was, quote, roaring or whatever it was doing, the judge would look at you and say, get out there and get a job, I don't care. Now that the unemployment rate's at 10% reported and 24 or 25% real, I don't think a court with a straight face can say anything like, just go out there and get a job. So as long as you're showing efforts, I think the judge would have to set your wage at what you could actually make. Now, does that mean that you got to turn down every job that's offered to you? And the answer is no. So if while you're looking for your construction job, there's an $8 an hour job somewhere, you're probably going to be imputed at least that.
Right. And that would be fine, but yeah, I was making considerably more than that in construction management, and my employer laid off 26,000 people.
Right.
And so to find that right now, and now I'm restricted by, since my kids are here, I can't travel, and I can't move out of the area.
Right, absolutely.
So I'm pretty much handcuffed here.
And that's an argument because we've made that before, which is, by the way, part of the reason that our options are limited is we are taking into consideration the custody situation, and we're not going to ask to move the kids to another state and stay with me, and I'm not going to leave my kids behind with just mom. I don't think it's fair to them. And so while, I could find a job that pays what I would like it to pay in Kalamazoo, Michigan, there's nothing here. So sorry, Judge, I can't. And that's a legitimate basis. Okay. Bob, I got to go into my break here.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it,
All right,
Carl.
take care.
Bye-bye.
540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions on WHP 580. I'll see you after the break.
Let's return to Weekend Appointment with Carl Rominger on WHP 580.
Hey, welcome back. Happy holidays. Carl Rominger here coming live from the WHP 580 studios. Talk line number is 540-0580. What a beautiful day it is out. Temperature kind of broke here. I don't know if it's going to rain or not. I don't know. I guess I should pay attention to the weather during the break for a change. Dale, you're on with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hey, I have a question about child support too, Carl, but mine's a little, I don't know how to word it. It's a little backwards.
Okay.
My wife and I have been married for 9 years.
Okay.
And she gets child support from her ex-husband for the 2 children she had with him.
Okay.
From another commonwealth. My issue with it, and I had her try to change it up to a Commonwealth of PA. She won't do it, and I have no control over it. She feels that the child support for her 2 children should be used only for the children, such as maybe getting them clothes, getting them haircuts, allowing them to buy food or buy whatever they want,
Right.
And it's not supposed to be used for any household expenses, and it hasn't been raised. She refuses to go for a raise, or whatever you call it, for 9 years.
Okay.
And I'm responsible for covering any expenses that her ex-husband won't cover. Now, do I have any rights in this?
No, you have no stake or no poker in that fire. It's between her and the ex-husband over the care and maintenance of the children and the child support guidelines. That's the simplest answer.
Even with things that her ex-husband should be taking care of, that I'm taking care of.
Well, she would have to go against him and say that he needs to contribute, but they're going to use the support guidelines, and if there's, like, let's say you're buying braces for a kid, she could go back and ask domestic relations to make him put in his share towards the braces, etc. Medical bills, unreimbursed medical, those sorts of things, summer camp, child care. So no, there's really no indirect cause of action available to you against him.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Dale, sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, take care. 540-0580, 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. I feel Dale's frustration. I've been involved in some child custody cases in the past where I've got the payor and the payee is living with somebody who makes, $400,000 a year or something, and the payor makes $32,000 a year, and he's scraping out, or she's scraping out $800 a month, going, I'm paying to heat their pool, and I don't understand it. And the child support law just doesn't really care what's going on with that third party, unless you have kids with a third party, and then those become a support obligation, which might increase or decrease the applicable amount available for a payor if they have multiple children they're responsible for to different people. Again, not something we recommend, although I've seen people with obligations to 4 or 5, one guy with 7 different support obligations to different women. And while I hear these horror stories about the welfare mamas who go out there and have as many kids as possible so they can collect welfare and child support payments, I run into more guys who are paying child support payments to women than I do women who are collecting child support payments from multiple guys. I don't know if that tells us something about our society or there's a hidden message in there, or it's just a quirk of practice in central Pennsylvania. I want to remind you to go to weekendappointment.com. Make sure you go there and sign up for the free will. I'm going to keep doing that, and we're going to check the Facebook page here in a minute and see if anybody's posted anything to try to claim that. And, of course, if you're not near a computer, I'll keep it open until later this afternoon. In fact, why don't we just say until tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., and then whoever posts the most interesting article or whatever up there, I'll go ahead and award that $20 Applebee's gift certificate too. So make sure you do that. And if you're not able to post to my Facebook page, you just have to friend me, and then I can authorize you, and then you can post away. I do put some interesting stuff on there from time to time. At least I think it's interesting. Although I try to keep that on the lighter side sometimes. And I also put out Durgan alerts when Bob calls me, so people know what the topic's going to be. Let's see. I do have somebody calling in right now, so give them a second here. 540-0580, and we'll put you on the air. Get your question answered for free here on this holiday weekend. And hopefully everybody's being safe. Do not drink and drive. This is a big weekend for drinking and driving. While I would love to have your business, I really don't want it that badly that you should do that. In fact, it's one of those things you want to avoid, because drinking and driving, the consequences have been ratcheted up to the point where serious things happen to you if you do it. Now, are we occasionally able to avoid those consequences for clients by, homing in on technicalities, proof, and sometimes do wholly innocent people get pulled over and charged? Absolutely. So I'm happy to represent anybody with those matters, but nonetheless, don't drink and drive. Maureen.
Yes.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, what's your question?
My ex-husband just passed away yesterday. His brother has contacted my children to say they need permission from them to have him cremated. And I just was wondering, when they give permission for that, is that going to come back to them to be liable for the bill?
I don't think so. So who's calling and asking this? His brother?
Yes.
And I think he just wants to know their wishes.
Okay, I didn't know because they have to fax this information to the funeral home.
Oh, well, wait a minute. What, do they have to sign something maybe?
Yes.
Oh, read the fine print then. I guarantee you somewhere in the fine print it says, okay, we elect cremation and we acknowledge that we'll pay for it.
Okay, I'll have to tell them to look out for that. I just didn't know. He said they just needed their permission to do it.
Well, there's two ways to check on that. Number one is look carefully at the language and make sure there's nothing in it saying you're ordering it, requesting it, etc.
Okay.
And what I would do, this is just me, people, you can do this. Remember, somebody gives you a boilerplate form and they want you to sign. Right below your signature, print clearly, I am not agreeing to pay for any services whatsoever. I am only indicating that I am in favor of cremation. I am not paying for anything, period.
Okay.
And that way, if all they want is permission, they got it, right? If all they want is permission and the ability to bill you, well, too bad, so sad.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Maureen.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, you got to be careful. They do this to you at the nursing homes. Would you like to be Grandma's representative? You can, this way, we can talk to you about Grandma's medical needs and help you with Grandma and help Grandma out. Just sign here. Well, then, when you come to my office and you're like, how come I got a bill for $40,000 for Grandma's care? I'm like, because you signed right here where you said that you would be personally liable for Grandma's care. But I thought I was just becoming Grandma's representative. See, don't fall for it, folks. Read the fine print. Bonnie, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Yeah, Carl, I had a question. I'm married and separated for a year and a half now, and my husband has a pension. And we were married for 14 years, so I know that I'm able to get some of that pension for the period of time that we were married, 14 years. Now, how would I go about attaching that pension?
Are you divorced yet?
No, we didn't. No, that would be in the divorce, I'm sure. But how would I go about to doing that?
Well, we would do what's called a qualified. Well, let me back up. I don't know what kind of pension it is. You don't need to tell me because I can answer. I can answer this for everybody though. If it's a 401k, a standard pension, we'll use what's called a quadro. That's a qualified domestic relations order, and that's where the court has power to divide that pension up, and the pension has to follow it.
Okay.
If it's a military pension, we'll use a domestic relations order or order of court, but they don't recognize quadros for it, and that's a technical point. If for some reason it's a foreign pension or some sort, then it gets a little creative because it's not always easy to get a foreign pension to comply with a local court order, so to speak. But nonetheless, yes, we would use. This is why you come to an attorney for something like this, because I'll give you an example. I just did one with the Teamsters, okay? Mm-hmm. You have to have very specific language in there. So what I do first is I figure out which kind of Teamsters pension it is. I get in contact with the gal that administrates it. She sends me one of their sample orders, okay? And I always get the newest version because it changes from time to time. If I use the one from 2 years ago, they may have tweaked their language a little bit. They have a preferred order, although it's not exact because it then has to be tailored to your situation. So, for instance, are you going to require him to carry a survivor's benefit on you so that if he dies even after you're divorced, you get the survival portion of the pension? Or you're going to let him give that to some new wife down the road? Well, we can handle that in the order.
Okay.
Are we fixing an amount, or are we letting it float because his pension will continue to accrue so that while your percentage of the pension goes down, that's marital, that's available to you, the total pension goes up so that you rise and swim with it? Or are we cleaving it neatly like we would with a 401k so that you now have your own little pile of investments that go their own way?
Well, he is retired now. The place of business is closed up and gone.
Right.
So he already has his 30 years in. He should be vested with the amount of pension that he's going to get, period.
And is he collecting yet?
No, he's not. He's 62. So some of the other coworkers have told him that he can get it now, and some of them they're telling him he can't. So I didn't know when that would happen and how I would go about if I'm filing for divorce now and he hasn't even got his pension.
Oh, we would get that information, but more importantly, we also want to make sure he collects his pension. I've been involved in cases where the one side will simply not claim something they're entitled to simply to keep it from becoming an income stream, so that you can't reach it, at least in the spousal support section or the alimony pendente lite portion of a divorce. So we have, however, forced people in the past to claim their pension.
Okay. I'm sure he's going to. He needs the money.
Right. We hope he does. And
yeah.
So, but even if he hasn't, when he does, and that quadro can be done after he claims it or before he claims it. Although, again, depending on what he signs when he claims, here's what I'd be worried about. He might sign it without a spousal benefit. You can't, if he does it in a binding way with the pension before you've done anything with the divorce, then you're stuck. On the other hand, sometimes with pensions, we get these great survivor's benefits. So imagine it this way. I'm just going to make a number up. Let's assume it's $2,000 a month is the pension. I'm just making a number up again.
Okay, it's not that much.
Right.
But yeah.
And assume that the marital share was split evenly, so you'd get $1,000 and he'd get $1,000. I'm just using neat numbers because they're easy to go with. And then he dies, and the survivor's benefit is 75%. Well, you go from $1,000 to $1,500 for the rest of your life.
Right.
So getting that survivor's benefit on there is critical because if you die first, you don't really care. But if he dies first, it's nice to know not only did the pension not end because he died, but it actually stayed the same or went up because you have the survivor's benefit portion of it.
You had mentioned something about domestic relations, so I cannot go to them and
they don't do that.
Okay.
This is divorce lawyer stuff.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I obviously I'm pro lawyer for some reason, but but the reality is, and you can think about this. I mean, I remember years ago telling a gal that we should divide her husband's naval pension and her Rite Aid pension, her Rite Aid 401k, and she should take half the naval and give him half of her Rite Aid. Well, back then Rite Aid was, I don't remember how many dollars a share, but it was way up there. Mm-hmm. And I always thought in retrospect about, I wish she'd have listened to me because I know that her Rite Aid 401k tanked, as did all the Rite Aid stock back in those days. But the naval pension's steady. And that's the point is with these, there's very clever ways of dividing these things up, which are designed to protect people and maintain an income level. Also, you may be entitled to alimony for a marriage this long. Now, maybe you're going to cohabitate and remarry shortly, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue alimony. It doesn't mean we can't work out a fixed term of years instead of an indefinite alimony, and even alimony that would survive should you continue to cohabitate with somebody new. So there's lots of different things that can be done in a divorce. We just have to look at every one of them, kind of figure out what's available, what's logical, length of marriage, income earning potential of the parties, and the equitable distribution statute, which is what we would use to divide your pension up. We consider over 20 factors.
Okay. He is on disability until he's 66, and then he will go on regular Social Security.
Gotcha.
I cannot collect anything on his disability until I'm 62, and that's about 2.5 years. So he still will be on disability for a while, and then he will be on his regular Social Security. And since we're married for 14 years, I would get 50% benefit off of his disability once I reach 62. So I guess all that has to be drawn up too then in the agreement?
It can, although some of those disability questions, Social Security questions, are done by operational law. And so right. I know that if you've been married for more than 10 years, I think Social Security will let you get the spousal share even if you're divorced.
Right. That is true as far as I know. However, then when he turns 66, he gets his regular Social Security, and then I would still continue, I'm sure, to get my benefit.
Correct.
And I'm not concerned about that. I have a period of 2.5 years where I'm disabled and I'm not able to collect yet because I'm still in the process of filing and have been denied Social Security disability because of whatever. They deny everybody, and I had a problem with getting back and following through with that. So now I'm going to try for SSI. So he says he's not going to agree to pay me anything in a spousal support, alimony after the divorce. So which means that we could be fighting about that. However, I do get support at this time.
Right. And he may. The other thing is, you have to be separated 2 years before either side can force a divorce. So, if you're not happy with what he's doing, or he's saying I'm not paying you afterwards, you can just kind of sit there and wait and just continue to collect the support in the meantime.
Right. That's what I said. Well, then you can just pay me.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow. Well, we're just separated.
All right, Bonnie.
All right. Thanks, Carl.
If you need anything else, you let me know. And thanks for calling. Enjoy your rest of your holiday.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Bye. 540-0580, 540-0580. The short answer is there is a lot that goes into a divorce. It's not a simple process. Now, if you have no property, you rent, and you've been married for, like a Britney Spears marriage of 24 to 12 hours or whatever that is, then maybe you can just go ahead and file a piece of divorce paperwork, dissolve yourself, and be done. But if there's any amount of property or debt out there, you've got to be very careful about what you do. I find that a lot of people go ahead and get a no-fault, simple divorce thinking it's the right thing to do, but not realizing that they're stripping themselves of the ability to have the divorce court sort things out so that when that $3,000 Visa bill joint comes up later, or there's a $6,000 asset that's owned by both parties, and they're trying to say, well, how do we sort this out, Carl? And say, well, it would have been really nice to sort that out in the divorce court because we have very nice, neat mechanisms for doing that. Now you're just co-owners of it, and you're like two businessmen who are going to fight over $6,000, and you're each going to pay your own lawyer's fees, and you're going to spend more than the asset's worth fighting over, or the debt's worth fighting over. So be very careful about getting sucked into these no-fault, easy divorces. We do them, but we don't do them before we carefully vet and make sure that there's no property involved, which means sending in a piece of paper over the internet or by mail isn't really a good way to go. So make sure you use a local attorney for those kinds of things. Don't answer these ads in newspapers or whatnot, because I have just too many horror stories from that sort of thing. Now, I'm sure somebody listening is like, "Oh, it worked great for me." Well, and I've hit some 3-point shots too before playing basketball, but that's like 1 in 10. 540-0580. Call if you still got some legal questions. Now, remember, we'll be back next week live, and of course, next week we'll be doing the bonus podcast hour where you can keep calling in from 3 to 3:45. And I will continue taking calls there. Remember, I've also said anybody who wants to post something interesting to my Facebook page, I'll be looking at it over the evening and then into tomorrow morning. If I find something I like, I'm going to reward that person with a $20 Applebee's gift certificate. So if you can find an interesting legal article, you want to just put something funny up there, give us something good to look at, we'll do that. I see all kinds of people walking around the booth over here. I don't know why there's so many people in here on a holiday. You would think that these guys would go out and do something, but then again, I kind of know.
Shane can't stay away from the show.
I know. That's what I was wondering why Shane was in there. I mean, he's not even working today. All right, folks. Want to make sure you also go to weekendappointment.com and download the free will kit. That's something that I've been strongly urging you to do. If you haven't done it, I want you to make it your resolution this fall to get your will done. It's no cost. It's no fee. So there's no more excuses. And again, it's done by a real live lawyer. I look over the sheet you send in. We talk about things. We do some estate planning if necessary. I help you then with powers of attorney. I help you then with living will, which again is the most important thing in the world too. A will is very important. I think a living will is even more important because it helps solve the problem. When your loved ones are sitting there trying to figure out, how did you want to go? Did you want a feeding tube or didn't you want a feeding tube? Is this really grandma's wishes or not grandma's wishes? Did my mom really want this treatment or not want this treatment? You can solve all those questions and take all that heartache away from your family. So remember to get a living will. All right, folks, there's the music. I will see you next week. In the meantime, make sure you go to weekendappointment.com. If you need my phone number, I'm always happy to have you as a client. And if you've been injured in a car accident or other personal injury, people have been asking, yes, we do those. And yes, I'd be happy to meet with you for a free consultation for your personal injury or auto accident. I will see you next week.